Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talked about the characters and movies that make us feel seen. And I'm going to try not to stammer through this introduction and trip over my words because I'm just kind of so amped up about it. But we have really one of the reasons for the season here on Feeling Seen, one of those people who, when I started the show, I was like, I have to talk to this person at some point, otherwise there's not a point in me doing this podcast. And you might know her from the profile I wrote about her in Wired magazine, which was attached to the movie that you probably know more, which was M3GAN, the first movie. She is in M3GAN, the second movie. She is a producer on both of those films. She stars in one of my favorite movies ever, The Perfection. She stars in one of the best movies of the 21st century, which is Get Out, which is one of the best horror movies of all time. You might have also seen her in the television shows Series of Unfortunate Events or the excellent and moving limited series Fellow Travelers. Allison Williams is coming up in M3GAN 2.0 and her new podcast, Landlines, which makes her my colleague and professional peer. Allison Williams, welcome to the show, and what else do the people need to know about you before we get started?
Oh my God, I did nothing. That was so thorough. I am so happy to be here. I'm so happy to see you. I am going to keep that recording and just send it to people for my introduction, including the Wired article, so that it's just confusing and it sounds like everyone has written a Wired article about me. But no, I'm so happy to be here on this podcast that I love talking to you. And I'm here. I'm ready to talk to you. I'm so excited.
Okay, well, first thing, before we get into the M3GAN 2 and your movies, again, we're colleagues now, your podcast.
I know.
Landline's HeadGum podcast. I was obviously doing the lit search and leading up to talking to you, and I was reading a town and country profile. There's a great part in like the setting up at the beginning where it gets into like the lore of you logging off and like deleting Instagram. And it's like, and then what did she do? She didn't start a podcast. Like, she didn't start selling serums. And it was like, listen, the podcasts come for us all. What was the thing with time and age? What clicked over to be like, I want the people to hear me on a regular basis?
The actual catalyst was motherhood, and then it expanded, and I realized that I had many more reasons to want to do it than I realized. And I had been in denial of this. Look, like especially after doing a press run for this movie, I would care to never hear the sound of my own voice again. And yet I have to listen to it like almost daily to do edits of our show.
Right.
But when I got pregnant, the group chat that I'd always had with my friends from growing up, like the friend group of 30 plus years, ignited for me in a way that it hadn't previously, because I needed urgent, specific, personally tailored information.
Right.
And like
perhaps
quickly.
Extremely vulnerable information.
100%. And that carried on through postpartum, carried on through like having a toddler, all of those stages. And then it became a place where we all went like first to kind of troubleshoot or ask a question, or like, hey, have you encountered this? Or does this look normal? Or whatever, like literally anything. There's no kind of limit. The example I often use is like a picture of my boob. I was like, is this mastitis? And everyone was like, yes, it's mastitis. And that was a little kernel of a thought of like, this is kind of how I'm getting through this. And with my other girlfriends that aren't in that friend group, but just were that live virtually with me in my phone while during all of those breastfeeding sessions and all those late nights, that village, so to speak, in addition to my, husband and family, were how I got through this time. But specifically other people who had gone through these exact same experiences and milestones were like, the way I was surviving it, because I felt totally not alone. I rarely felt shame about anything. As long as I said it out loud, the shame would be gone. It would just like poof into thin air. I then realized that two of my friends who live in the same town in Maine and are like always in touch with each other very regularly were starting to have the same thought that like our group chat kind of would be awesome to be able to share with other people. And one of them is a therapist and one of them is an early childhood educator. And I very often was turning to each of them specifically for their like fields of expertise as we navigate this stage of life. Our main goal really is to be like counter programming to the way social media would have you perceive this stage of life. Either just having female hormones or being alive as an adult at this stage of life, or being in a partnership or having kids. The portrayal so often on social media is so precious and perfect and so curated for our jealousy and our...
you don't really see the help staff at the ballerina farm of these incredibly rich people who have all of these children.
I'm under researched on the ballerina farm of it all. I really need to do a deep dive, but it's calling to me in a way that I haven't responded to yet, and I shall, and I will, and I will learn a lot, and I'll have more to report back on. But yes, like the thing I always think about is lunches, because our son eats the same thing every day. It's kind of balanced. Like there's some good stuff in there, but it's the same every day. If I were to like grill him chicken breasts with a balsamic glaze and like a burnt like Brussels sprout, like anything more complicated than like goldfish, baby carrots, pasta with red sauce, like anything more complex than that is just not going to be eaten. And so when I was introducing solid foods and I would get all this content of like kids eating these elaborate, balanced, like flavor intense meals, I would get such like, I would feel so self-conscious. I'd be like, what is wrong with me? What's wrong with our son? Why aren't we doing this right?
I'm raising a gremlin over here.
And my friends were like, turn it off, delete that app. This is bullshit. Like none of this, that kid might exist, but he's like the only kid that eats like that. Like it's just not representative. And more to the point, that's not your kid. So like learn the discipline to be like, that's not me, or that's not my kid, or that's not our circumstances, or whatever is kind of where this impulse came from. And the other thing was like, we realized that for the three of us who are of every imaginable privilege other than being men, that's basically the only one we don't have. For it to be really hard for us is like, okay, well then it's just fucking impossible. Like literally we've run the tables, like we've run the experiment. If we're struggling through this and we're having trouble and we have, childcare support, we have a second spouse that we're parenting with, we have every safety net, and we're still like, I stay up for 5 hours after Arlo goes to bed at night and getting stuff done, and it just is never enough. Yeah. Then we were like, okay, someone needs to say that, because if we are looking at this content feeling inadequate and like we're not doing this right, then I cannot imagine how it would feel to someone who has many fewer resources than we have and is looking at this and also measuring themselves up to that bar. Like that makes me, I want to like cry and break things when I think about that someone in a situation with fewer resources than we have is like judging themselves against the standards. Like it's just everyone's just doing their best, and like just leave everyone the fuck alone. And if you want to brag about your thing that you do so well, like just say that part out loud. Be like, I'm really proud. I'm really proud of this lunchbox I just put together. And we can all be like, cool, like good for you. That's so cool. But if you're just saying, oh, I'm casually, I wake up at 4 a.m. and inject myself with all these vitamins, and I peel all these things off my face, and I put all these serums on you can't afford, and my skin is perfect just by accident and from all these things. And then I do a workout, and then I greet my husband and make him his like ASMR coffee. And I can't with that. I can't. It's just, that's the very long-winded answer for why.
This is not a non sequitur to me. This is an actual bridge into wanting me to bring up M3GAN 2, which is, I think, like, it's not a way you have to engage with either of these movies if it's not, like, something that's, like, top of mind for you. But for someone who, like, found family is been really the backbone of my adult life. Watching M3GAN 1, and I was heartened to see in M3GAN 2 that similarly, like, this is a kind of, like, motley crew amalgamation organized around Katie, and to like, the technology work that you do and like, work and work against, like kind of in the second one. But it's this ragtag group of people that seems to be a sort of non-traditional family of sorts that looks
people
after
and
one
non-people,
another.
By the way.
I was really heartened to see that in the second movie it carried over, and there was not like a total heteronormatizing of Gemma, or kind of like probably like, Grindr in the background, Tinder in the background queen who's got this busy life sort of situation that, listen, I'm not going to put it on you, but to the gays out there, I think we maintain you as a canonical lesbian just on the
I'm with you, by the way. Like you've heard it from me. Canonically, that is how I see Gemma, or just maybe asexual. I'm not sure. I just don't think.
And we love that.
Same. I think it's really low. The bottom line to me is that it is low. She likes sexual pleasure, but it is low. Romance and relationships are very low on her list of priorities. And I think that's fucking awesome. I'm so glad that at the center of this movie that's about kind of relationships between female identifying beings. It is like the Bechdel test. It is like there's a few conversations in the sequel about a guy who, as it turns out, the movie is kind of repeatedly making jokes about how the stereotype of this arc would be that Gemma is on a romantic arc towards someone, and the payoff, without spoiling it, is like it punctures that balloon like in a very big way twice. Yes. It's such a relief to me that we didn't go there with the sequel. That was like super, super important to me. It was very important that we maintain that it not become this thing of like, she's got it all, but she doesn't have a, you know, like I'm so bored of that. But to the point of the Motley Crue thing, as we kind of dream about potentially doing a third one, if we're lucky enough to get that mandate, I do think about the fact that like, if I'm Gemma, there is a part of me that's like, I can assemble an even like more substantial crew if I have a partner, but then you're also kind of like, but I get more control over the crew if I don't, you know? And so I sort of want to see her like, I toy with that idea and then discard it kind of in the third movie, potentially. It would be very fun to see her do that. But yes, and I also wanted to say that from the moment you launched this podcast, I've had this connection in my head between like, you were the only journalist I spoke to for the first M3GAN that was like, I identified the most with M3GAN. I felt seen by M3GAN.
With no caveats and unabashedly so. I am M3GAN. And M3GAN too. I continue that identification.
That makes me very happy. That was one of my questions for you when we spoke today, was that did you still feel that kinship with her?
I do. And you know what? I will say, like, the her that existed in the trailer, I was concerned about. The her that I got in the movie, I was like, that's my girl. Like, that's my girl. That's our girl.
Yes.
And there was still, like, she's still powered by this central mandate of, like, protect Katie at all costs. And actually, this is part of the self-identification, because as a gift from my mom is the entitlement to feel like, because I love more loudly than a lot of people around me and kind of very unabashedly, that I'm doing it better. And even if that's not the way that you need to be loved to feel like nourished, well, I'm doing it so much, so it's probably a you issue that it's not satisfying in the way you need it to be. That's part of my inheritance and my glorious
I love
journey in
it.
this life.
By the way, it also is reminding me of the finale of Girls when Marnie is saying to Hannah, I win. I'm the best friend.
I'm your best friend.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
That is the most I've identified with a human, I think, in programming.
I'm so honored. No wonder we get along.
I don't know, Marnie. This is just... You think you have a lot of friends, right? Yeah. Who's here? Depends on the day. Elijah's not here. Jessa sure as hell isn't here. Adam isn't here. Shoshana literally despises all of us. Who's here? I'm here. I win. I'm your best friend. I'm the best at being your friend. I love you the most. Okay. Yeah? Yeah, okay. Fuck you!
That was one of those clear situations of like, I read the scene in the table read and I was like, this is hilarious. This is so fucking funny. And then in the moment, playing Marnie, doing that scene felt such unbelievable conviction. Like total, the whole process of being her.
There's a sociopathy in your eyes in that moment.
In all Marnie moments, she's like very, she like dips her toe in and out of the sociopath. Like it's a character trait pool, I would say.
Well, okay, if I don't get to your characters, I will be completely irresponsible in my mandate of this show. You have brought the two of the most iconic... I will not besmirch the name of Victor Victoria. I will say two of the most iconic Julie Andrews performances in, obviously, The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins.
Yes.
You're in the mom era of your career. You've now been Katie's mom twice. First as like, I didn't expect this. Then a few years later, you yourself are a mom, and you're like, you kind of name it in M3GAN 2 as like, this is my child.
Yes.
She's not just like a visitor anymore. And what I wanted to know was, in identifying with like both of these characters that play this maternal role to these children, they come into these homes with these overbearing taskmaster fathers, and they connect to them through like, Mary Poppins is pointed, but like she says, she's never cross.
Yes.
And there's a kindness and the spoonful of sugar. And then there's obviously Maria, the like purest heart of all in
What is
Nazi
it, you
era
cunt
Austria.
face? My favorite new meme. Are you aware of this?
No, this is new.
The mother superior of in that scene when they are confronting Maria, she says in her accent, what is it you can't face? But it is unmistakably, what is it you cunt face? And I watch that video constantly. It's extraordinary.
I couldn't stay. I knew that here I'd be away from it. I'd be safe.
Maria, our abbey is not to be used as an escape. What is it you can't face?
Yeah, sorry. Your question was so good. Keep going. I interrupted you yet again, please.
No, and what I come to with it is, how do you find, as you've gotten older and these movies stay in amber, that you as like an adult and a mom connect differently to these matriarchal figures of Mary and Maria, when it was like, maybe when you're younger, it's like, I'm one of the Von Trapps. And then you get older and you're like, oh my God, I'm sobbing at the parental dilemma that these women are dealing
Here's
with.
what's wild is that the reason she was my answer and those roles were my answer to this question was that I always identified with her. I never identified as a Von Trapp. And not even Liesel, like the prettiest and most, fun with the song and whatever. I didn't. It was always Julie Andrews. And I later was able to like make the connections of like, okay, Mary, Maria, they're both nannies. Like it's just, the parallels are crazy. She filmed them within like 2 years of each other. She was probably like,
so close.
I need to
like they came out and I think it's like 64 and 65.
I know, she was
That's
probably
unreal.
like, I gotta do something else. I have to play like a stripper or something. But
put me in, I'm a drag king. I'm a drag king now.
Exactly. But what I'm in awe of is it's I think what I always loved about it was watching her navigate boundary, I think is what I love about those performances because, and it was something that I thought about a lot playing Gemma was like, you're watching someone come into custody of someone who is, unlike her characters in those movies, is not ready. She doesn't know she's going into this. She's just like, it's happening to her.
Yeah.
But, and the boundaries she has are just real. Whereas watching Julie Andrews have the exact like dialed in amount of emotional intimacy that feels appropriate with these kids in a way that we feel they are so loved and taken care of, but that she's not overstepping.
Well, where are the others?
They're asleep. They're not scared.
Oh, no? Look. All right, everybody. Up here on the bed.
Really?
Well, just this once. Come on. Now all we have to do is wait for the boys.
You won't see them. Boys are brave.
You boys weren't scared too, were you?
Oh, no. We just wanted to be sure that you weren't.
It's very thoughtful of you, Friedrich.
It wasn't my idea. It was Kurt's.
Kurt! That's the one I left out. God bless Kurt.
Like, there's something so impressive that you could feel her love. And I think the thing that always amazed me as an actor was watching those performances going like, she never loses me. Like as an audience member, like I'm never starting to like take someone else's side against her. I am always on her side. And maybe that's just because I feel seen by her and I love her. But I think that's kind of...
I'm always on Marnie's side.
Exactly. Even I'm not always on Marnie's side. I'm definitely not on her side. But I think that's kind of her magic is that there's something so lovely and warm about her portrayal of those characters that have been in other genres and in other movies. Like the wicked stepmother is like a trope, and she redid it. She like completely reimagined it where it's aspirational that you have this person coming into your life who brings joy and brings fun in concert with the order. And even from like a metatextual perspective, I so often from the very beginning of promoting and talking about Get Out have used Spoonful of Sugar as my like governing principle for why I do thrillers.
Shall we begin?
It is a game, isn't it, Mary Poppins?
Well, it depends on your point of view. You see, in every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. And every task you undertake becomes a piece of cake, a lark, a spree. It's very clear to see that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in a most delightful way.
I take the wording from that song, which was so formative for me to describe why I love like tackling big themes in thrillers and with comedy as well. Like you can get away with talking about a lot of intense stuff outside of drama because you can just, I don't know. Well, we've talked about this before. I don't need to retread. But anyway, so there's like a gazillion reasons that she's the one for me. Julie Andrews is the one for me, but then also those two roles in particular also were just the things I watched the most during the period of time when I was contemplating this as a job and realizing that it was something I wanted to do, and watching her play these two roles that were biographically very similar, but with such different energies to each portrayal that I thought like, well, that is like a magic trick. That feels so badass to me. And I'm obsessed with her, which I was able to tell her, which was such a privilege.
What a coup.
Oh my God.
What a coup.
It was such a victory to be able to tell her that.
Well, I was so interesting to me watching Mary Poppins again, thinking of you in the context, because she has this manner about her that honestly felt very similar to encountering you in these contexts in which we've had these conversations. This is, I think, my fourth film interviewing you. And they're like, when I watched her talk to Banks, like Mr. Banks, and she's telling the kids that he's going to come see him at his bank.
Oh, it's time they learned to walk in your footsteps.
My footsteps.
To tread your straight and narrow path with pride.
With pride.
Tomorrow, just as you suggest, pressed and dressed, Jane and Michael will be at your side.
Splendid. You've hit the nail right on at my side. Where are we going?
To the bank, of course, exactly as you proposed.
I proposed.
Of course. Now, if you'll excuse me, tomorrow is an important day for the children. I shall see they have a proper night's sleep. Good night.
Winifred, did I say that I was going to take the children to the bank?
It certainly sounded that way, dear.
No. And why not? Capital idea. Just the medicine they need for all this slipshod, sugary female thinking they get around here all day long. Quite right. Good idea. Quite right. Good idea. Quite right.
The kids later on, they bring up how, like, you made, you know, like something along the lines of how she made Dad think it was his putting ideas in his head. And she was like, me putting ideas in his head? Like, that I would never, kind of thing. And she kind of demurs from that. And not that like you're putting ideas in people's head, but the notion of how I immediately encountered you the first time I interviewed you for Get Out, and the immediate sense of ingratiating that happened in the press junket hotel room that you were in. There was such an immediately and sort of like deftly laid on like personal identification of like you said, you complimented my hat. And like you said something very specific that would have not been necessarily that something else would have said, to be like, there is now a string between me and you, and it's going to establish a rapport for this conversation. And I wondered if this kind of like Poppinsian sort of quality of like ingratiating yourself toward conversation, like it feels like you were a kid that was really good with adults or something, and like I know how to like make myself fit in a situation, and you meet people where they are. I'm sure authentically, but also like a degree, like almost like habitually, like reflexively meeting people where they are. And I wanted to hear about that and you and Mary Poppins.
What an incredibly insightful question. Honestly, talking to you saves like a month of therapy at a time, always. The only person to identify this as succinctly and specifically as you just did was Aristotle, who's in the M3GAN sequel. He plays Christian. And he said the same thing to me. And he had to say it on 2 different occasions in 2 different ways, because the first time he said it to me, I did not understand at all what he was talking about. I was like, what are you describing? He's like, I'm going to think about it some more and try to reword it. But then he eventually said something exactly like what you said. And he was talking about it in the framework of me as a producer, as watching me navigate all of these different departments, actors, people with different personalities and needs or whatever. And he was like, I watch you like move through this set and dealing with problems and solving them and a lot of problems, as is always the case in an artistic thing, are personality based, clashing, people who just don't see eye to eye, people who aren't communicating well. And he was like, honestly, that is the thing about you that I find, it's so weird. I'm like repeating a compliment. It feels like you should just interview him, have him do it, and then you can repeat it back to me. But he was just saying that this was the quality that I had, which I had never noticed was something that I had that maybe other people didn't ever really. My desire for people in their interactions with me to, not to use like a buzzword, if you're drinking, every time you hear this, you're going to be wasted by the end of this podcast, but for everyone to feel seen by me, like I'm with you. Yeah. I'm like taking you in, and I want you to know that like I embrace the person across from me, and I'm like with you in this moment. And I feel that way about every single person that I interact with, to such an extent that when I do any show, I write notes to everybody afterwards, because it's my way of like solidifying that like we worked together. It meant something to me. Yeah. I remember, and I'll like put something in about something we talked about into the notes if I can. And like, this happened and it mattered, and thank you. And it's my way of being able to kind of make sure that I punctuate all of these professional experiences with an acknowledgement of that. The difference between, and maybe this is happening on a subconscious level that I don't even notice, but there isn't, Mary Poppins in those moments is being coy because she's
running a game for sure.
Exactly. That luckily, that would tip me into like more of a sociopathic, I think, in a positive way, maybe for good, sociopathy for good. My new foundation. Deep down, what's the engine for all of it? It just is for me. And I think it might have been baked in through things like watching Mary Poppins and Sound of Music, literally like watching performances like that and just feeling like doing good and being kind and taking care of people just is the goal, you know? And that's, and period. Now that I guess the macro goal on a film set for operating that way is to maintain harmony, get to allow everyone to like do their best work, to create an environment where everyone can function to the best of their ability and feels respected and taken care of. And I also want to be able to work with everybody again.
It's time for a break, but when we come back, Allison tells me how her acting goals have changed since her 20s. And then at the end, I will have one quick thing before I go about the Hollywood news surely on the tip of everyone's tongue, the short list for who should play James Bond, and the correct answer for who should play James Bond. So stick around for that completely non-controversial and objective opinion at the end.
Are you a 5-star baddie? If you answered yes, then Black People Love Paramore is the podcast for you. Contrary to the title, we are not a podcast about the band Paramore. Black People Love Paramore is a pop culture show about the common and uncommon interests of Black people in order to help us feel a little bit more seen. We are your co-hosts, Sequoia Holmes,
Jewel Wicker,
and Ryan Graham.
And in each episode, we dissect one pop culture topic that mainstream media doesn't associate with the Black people, but we know that we like.
We get into topics like ginger ale, the Golden Girls, Black romance, Uno, and so much more.
Tune in every other Thursday to the podcast that's dedicated to helping Black people feel more seen. Find Black People Love Paramore on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
One thing we all have in common, we all have a mind.
It makes me so scared because I'm like, when is the bad thing going to happen?
And minds can be kind of unpredictable and eccentric.
Everybody wants to hear that they're not alone. Everybody wants to hear that someone else has those same thoughts.
Depeche Mode with John Moe is about how interesting minds intersect with the lives and work of the people who have them. Comedians, authors, experts, all sorts of folks trying to make sense of their world.
It's not admitting something bad if you say, this is scary.
Depeche Mode with John Moe, every Monday at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get podcasts.
Welcome back to my conversation with, let's just make it official, my friend Allison Williams. Allison stars in the new movie M3GAN 2.0, and we will get back into that film in a second. But first, we return to a very different pair of films, both starring Julie Andrews, that made Allison feel seen: Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music. Yes, we are talking about a massive Julie Andrews double bill. These films came out 1 year apart, a generational back-to-back in 1964 and 1965. You see just such the magic of Julie Andrews as a performer to play these sort of like on paper, like if you explain them both, it'd be like, so they're the same. So Maria and Mary are the same. And then
it's literally the same name in different languages. And
right. And then you see it played out, and they're very much not. But like one thing that they both absolutely are, and Julie Andrews is so good at this, is like sort of existing as almost kind of alien within their circumstances. Like within Sound of Music, we have like, God, drag her. How do you solve a problem like Maria? And then, but even over in the context of the family and all the Von Trapp children and Mr. Von Trapp and all the like environmental touchstones of wealth and privilege, she's also out of water there. So even within this life of austerity in the convent, it's like, what do we do with her? Then she shows up at this big, ostentatious home, and she's this beautiful blonde woman. And they're still like, we've never encountered anything like this. And then Mary Poppins literally like floats in from fucking space and shows up. And so in both of these circumstances, we have these people who are completely unabashedly themselves, regardless of how their movements or choices might make them outliers compared to the people around them. But there's not a self-consciousness about that. So I wanted to hear about like looking up to or seeing yourself in these characters who go into these like very kind of public settings or these big settings, and they're like, I'm going to be me regardless. And if that is something that you have always connected to, if that's something that you've grown into, if you're growing into it, what about that?
Well, the thing that's so funny to me about her in those roles being like an outsider is that the studio note these days would be like, we need to make her a little bit less likable, I think, at the beginning.
Yeah.
She arrives on the scene and you're like, this extraordinarily beautiful, awesome nanny is like...
voice of an angel.
Who sings beautifully and like holds a guitar like it weighs 0 pounds and like... is like on foot towards this house in the Alps. Like, it's incredible. Her thigh and calf strength alone earns her like all the accolades. We're just really lucky that the studios didn't give that note because we just get to see like Julie Andrews and her like in characters for sure, but allowing to let her Julie Andrews-ness really shine through the characters, which is such a gift to us. I love that for us that happened. The idea of it is, I am, I guess, experiencing, as I'm thinking through your last point, I'm experiencing this dissonance between my increasing comfort with like self and just like being kind of myself and like fuck it a little bit, which is so nice. And the desire to interact with everyone with the part of myself that is most proximate to them. Okay. Rather than seeing it as like a different person or putting on a different personality or like shape-shifting into something else, it's more like bringing the part of myself to the fore that is like the closest, will have the best fusion point with the person I'm talking to. And I do think there used to be much more of a shape-shifting going on where it was like the sense of self was still developing, and I always now just picture Inside Out. So I'm like picturing my sense of self from Inside Out, where that's still like being built. And that took maybe a little longer for me than some people, maybe also because I was playing another person at the same time for my whole 20s, where like I think sense of self, for me, at least for my friends, like a lot of those building blocks went into that decade. But now it does just feel like there's one kind of cohesive thought, and I lead with other parts. And then the bigger thing that I am enjoying now is figuring out which of those parts are going into the characters that I play, and feeling less preoccupied with what would have been, I think, my stated mission at the beginning of being an actor, which would be like eventually to play someone with whom I have zero in common, you know, like where I literally, we have nothing in common. I'm unrecognizable, and I don't sound like myself, and I don't move like myself, and all of those things. Like the full transformation used to be the goal. And now I'm really liking, my new goal is kind of to be as like present as possible. Particularly the M3GAN movies have like a very specific tone. So I don't fully get to do this in those movies, but I shot 2 other movies this year. And in both of them, my little like mission for myself was to be as alive feeling and as spontaneous feeling on camera as I could possibly be. That in such a way that like I can't at least yet, maybe this is like a skill level that I haven't unlocked yet. I can't yet leave myself behind in that mission. But in a way, like bringing myself into it makes it so much more fun, because then you just do things that feel human. And as I'm watching cut after cut of these 2 movies, I'm like, there's so much more humanity in this performance. Yeah. Because it's just infused with more comfort and groundedness in myself, and a willingness to just like bring that onto the screen.
What was the maximal nature of that prior aspiration to like be completely obscured, to disappear? Was that kind of that like I'm gonna prove? Like, is that like because that's what actors do, and I'm an actor.
Well, I think yes, 100%. When I was growing up, the kind of after my like Julie Andrews fandom, and after Wizard of Oz and Peter Pan and all of those, like the Mary Martin and the Judy Garland, like those were my kind of first tier idols. And those movies specifically, like that was all kind of like this, just the most canonically important stuff to me. After that, once I started really like watching people act, think about the performances that people talk about as being the best of all time. It's men being really angry, but like, let's put that to the side.
It's women in a make-under with a prosthetic.
Exactly. That's what I was getting to, with an accent, like not talking like themselves. And exactly. And so, and honestly then, that coupled with being so tied to Marnie and being so annoyed that people didn't know that I was in on the joke and blah, 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 only made that worse, because then I was like, well, maybe finally, if I can really disguise myself into a role, people will be like, okay, I guess she knows what she's doing. Yeah. But what I was missing in that was really that when I'm watching things, in the things that I love and watch, what I'm responding to is that sparkle of someone's inner life in another context, in a costume, with another name. You know, I watch like Julia Louis-Dreyfus on Veep. Like what I'm responding to is the fact that JLD is like crackling with life just under the surface of Selena. And then I was like, well, what is my reaction to that is trying to steer me in another direction? And I've loved doing these like sort of different variations on the theme of who I am. Demographically. And so I'm just going to keep doing that, except stop trying to prove anything with it and just like do it. And Gemma was honestly, playing Gemma was like really part of just accepting that, was that I share no knowledge with her. I know none of the stuff that she knows. I had to know enough about it so that I would be able to portray it convincingly. But just knowing that from the producer standpoint, the best thing for the movie was just for me to feel the most grounded. And the best way for me to do that was just to like exist as much as possible within the like tonal world, the very specific tonal world that Gerard's creating.
Well, actually, okay, that actually gets to what I think I'm going to choose as my final question, which you make this movie about these things that are sort of perpetually themselves. And even the intelligence itself has a desire to grow. Like M3GAN wants to upgrade her, but she wants to be taller. Like it's like Kirsten Dunst in Interview with the Vampire. She's so fucking tired of being a little girl. And she's never not going to be a little girl.
I love that analogy.
But robot M3GAN gets to be an adolescent. But so I want to tie in, we're talking M3GAN. And I want to tie in your podcast where you, there was an episode where you and your friends talk about like your relationship with Botox and like these elective procedures and what is really the role that outside procedures and elective processes should play in us reversing this natural process that is organic to our bodies of aging and changing. And I was so interested by your explanation of how you engage with these things. And you were like, I want to see myself when, like, it's most important to me to, like, when I look at myself in a mirror, I'm like, that's who I am. I want to recognize me. And you talked about your eyes. Like, I think of myself first and foremost as like my big blue eyes. I have these wide open blue eyes. And so, like, you kind of forecasted, like, I see myself like maybe 10 years down the line, getting a little eyelift lid to just like keep those eyes. So when I look, I see myself looking back. And it made me think of Julie Andrews and how she had, like, she went to get like these like nodes or lesions.
The nodes removed.
Yeah, removed on her vocal cords. And the procedure
about it all the time.
went wrong and she came out of anesthesia and she was no longer able to sing. This is Julie fucking Andrews. And she was no longer able to sing. And she's talked about how she went into a depression. This was so key, so cornerstone to her self-identification as, like, we grow and we change and things about us differ. And yet still, she's so much older than when she made Sound of Music and was Maria Von Trapp and Mary Poppins. But still, decades later is like, my voice is me and now it is gone. And I wanted to hear from you about, like, how is the process of dealing with just like knowing that things will change and how you, like, what central tenets of yourself you are growing with and bringing to the surface as you identify the way things shift and grow as you get older.
There's so many things, and it's really astute to sort of put it in contrast to this idea of a fixed permanent something. You know, looking at Megan's face as I do, as we're doing scenes together, this like perfect, quote, perfect face with
quote,
like poreless
perfect
skin.
face.
Exactly. And it's like also uncanny and unsettling and terrifying, but it is like, there's not a pore on her skin. Everything, every eyelash was put in exactly where it needed to go.
Yes.
You know, like everything was engineered for perfection. And I'm looking at this face and it will always look like that unless in future movies she decides to keep growing at the same rate that Amy Donald does or that, you know, Violet McGraw does. And
but even she, like, what is the thing she insists on? Like, don't touch my fucking face.
Change my face and I'll change yours.
Yeah, like she even is like, no. There is an aspect of identity here that you don't get to have.
Yes. I feel very lucky that the feature I feel this way about are my eyes, because your actual eyeballs, I'm sure they'll get cloudier with age, but the eyeballs themselves, like unless something happens, unless there's an accident, and that could happen, the actual eyeballs, that blue, like the orbs that I'm used to looking at, like that to me is where I check in with myself. It's the part of other performances that I'm really like locked into. I'm noticing like more and more that I don't blink a lot, which is also strange. Like I've been noticing this watching cuts of these other movies that I don't blink a lot, which is sort of unsettling in a human.
Uncanny.
Especially in a movie with a robot. I was watching the movie at the premiere the other night. I was like, oh my God, bitch, blink. Like, what is your deal? Like, what is happening?
The third movie is
really
she's been an android this whole time.
I'm really focused on something. I'm not blinking. It feels like, I think that feels like a realistic thing to have clutched onto as a sense of, as a representation of myself, I think. That's the most superficial way of answering this question. The more deep way of answering it is just that when you get to a place in life, where you feel some amount of comfort with who you are and some amount of self-acceptance, that doesn't mean that it's going to be timed with you ceasing to change.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's a bitch.
Immediately on the heels of finally being like, I'm kind of down with this whole thing that I've been dealt, you know, and I'm like, I'm mostly nice to myself in the mirror. I mostly have nice thoughts about myself. Once you get to that stage, it's not like things are going to stop. Forces are going to stop shifting around you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of the exact place I am in with regards to myself as a person at this stage of life and in the roles that I'm playing and in my performances, where it's like, I always want to have fun with the perception of me and all of the stuff we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Like that's my number one MO. But in addition to that, in terms of the parts of myself that I bring to the roles that I play, that is where I'm having the most interesting journey at the moment, I think, because I'm allowing myself to bring as much as I think I always was, but just didn't want to acknowledge even to myself, because I was hoping to put distance between myself and the characters that I played.
Yeah.
I still think it's funny and weird that people didn't see more distance between myself and the characters that I played. I'm not saying there's none.
Right.
There's still quite a lot, but I don't feel like the bar for being a good actor is the biggest possible delta.
Yeah.
Between the actor and the character. I no longer feel like that really matters to me in terms of being able to respect a performance.
Well, I surrendered objectivity long ago in the context of you, where it's just like, listen, I'm interviewing this person who I really like. So
it's so mutual. I honestly could listen to you ask a question for days.
You're just somebody I really enjoy and I root for. So I'm glad that more you, in the ways that it is appropriate to come to the fore, depending on character, is where you feel comfortable sort of like going into those lanes as opposed to the largest delta. Because I like seeing you. And I'm really happy to see you here and in M3GAN 2, which is an action comedy, you guys. It's an action comedy and it's really funny.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for being here and taking the time to do this. I'm so glad M3GAN can officially come out in theaters now that we've spoken.
I know. Well, I was like, you can't release you have to change the release date. If Jordan and I haven't spoken, it's just not appropriate in my canon to release something that I've done without us talking about it first. There's so much more to say, but I'm so grateful. And yes, this movie we have put like our literal blood, sweat, tears, years of work into this movie. We love it so much. It is so funny, I think.
It is. No, it really is.
Fully an action movie. There's a meta thing to enjoy about each of us being in an action movie. Like, you are invited to find it funny and ridiculous and unlikely that we are these characters from the first movie are suddenly in an action movie. It's thrust upon us. We do what we must. And I am just so excited that it's going to be in the world so soon. And I'm just happy to be able to talk to you about it. And I hope we get to talk about it more once it's out.
I do as well. And yeah, I will have to conclude it there and just say thank you so much, Allison Williams, for coming on the show today.
Joj, it was a pleasure. As always, I hope we get to talk to you really soon.
Thank you so much, as ever, to perpetually my favorite interview, Allison Williams. M3GAN 2.0, an action comedy, is in theaters right now. Go see what all of the fuss is about, my fuss, the greater fuss. And hey, if you like podcasts, why not check out Allison's new podcast, Landline? Go, give it a listen. As she says, welcome to the group chat. It's like hanging out with a bunch of your buddies. And now that one quick thing before I go. Now that the James Bond property is out of the hands of its decades-long stewards, and it is just like properly in the possession of Amazon, I'm not going to get into whether that's good or bad. I think we're all not feeling great about it, but here we go. Let's cross our fingers. Denis Villeneuve was announced recently as the director for whatever the next upcoming Bond film is going to be. He's a little serious for my taste. I was really hoping we would get back to at least a Pierce Brosnan vibey kind of Bond. But if, the movies are going to look great. And who knows, maybe he'll find his campy fun streak in him. But the thing I want to get to here today is that at the end of the week in which this is being recorded, it was announced that the Amazon's shortlist for who they want to be James Bond, looking at actors under 30, and the three names that are allegedly the most sought after are Jacob Elordi, Harris Dixon, and Tom Holland. And my thought is that I hope that that's Amazon's shortlist and not Denis Villeneuve's. I think having a tall, even if they bulked up, like, because James Bond's not like a ripped guy. Like, that was Daniel Craig did that like one time. Having like tall, sad-eyed, sexy wraiths, like Harris Dixon and Jacob Elordi, be James Bond, I like that feels just weird in my core. These are all actors I like. And I'm just, it doesn't sit right in my soul. But you know what? Like, Tom Holland's a little guy. Out of the three, Jesus, my hope would be on Tom. At least he's fun. And that would be a flyer I would like to take a chance on. But the correct answer, as I promised you, the correct answer is Aaron Pierre. They're looking for a younger age range. I guess that would put, like, Idris Elba's been a name for a long time. I like when people float Aaron Taylor Johnson. I truly think he would actually be a great James Bond. But honestly, Aaron Pierre. It's Aaron Pierre. Like, this guy, I mean, he's the whole package. He's the suave. He's imposing. Like, he's pretty swole, but like, that's not like, I'm not saying that's like you have to have it or you don't, but he's a presence. Like, Connery was a presence. It's like, and that just, like, if he fills a door frame, there's like a star power about that guy, but not in a way that makes you feel like it's like dreary or dark in the way that Elordi or Dixon kind of bring to the table. Again, two actors I really like. But it just, like, Rebel Ridge, guys. Like, did we watch that movie? Did we all watch that movie and remember how absolutely fucking rad it is? And how, like, just, he's got the quiet, he's got the man of few words that just conveys so much more with his presence than he could even say. I'm a real believer that he's good with a one-liner, and I think he could be good with a little cheeky one-liner. And he is an Englishman as well. He's 31, so he's like, they're looking under 30. I think the report said. Again, this is all reported, not like hard fact, but like, I think this is a later entrant into the game, courtesy of the Rebel Ridge catapult, but it is the correct entry. It is the horse at the back of the race coming up in closing speed, who should be the one to cross the finish line and take the trophy in the end. And that trophy is being the new 007. He has those light, mesmerizing eyes. I mean, again, it's the whole deal. You need the charisma. You need the frame. You need the star power. Come on, I say. That's all I say. That's all I can say, because it feels so self-evident. I honestly don't know what more receipts you could ask me to possibly give. And anyway, that's our show, this Aaron Pierre Stan podcast. You can keep up with us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow wherever you are currently listening to get every new episode in your feed as it drops. You can find us on Instagram at Feeling Seen Pod to keep up with what's going on with the show, as well as do the same on Blue Sky, where we are Feeling Seen. And I'm there as well as Jor Crew, which is also where you can find me on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Eapen. The show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
supported directly by you.